I don't know if you're gonna see this voice memo, but I thought I was happy.
Are you happy?
I'm not happy at all.
The question is, are you happy?
I'm the happiest I've ever been right now.
P.S. Be the person who you'd want to meet because somebody needs you.
Welcome to Are You Happy? The Happy Hour.
Back, everyone, to another episode of Are You Happy podcast. We have been on vacation, but we're back and it's 2024, and we are so excited to welcome Cindy Kaza, who is an amazing personality. Welcome, Cindy. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I'm on a show called The Dead Files. I've been on several shows on Travel Channel, but The Dead Files is the most recent show that I've become a part of. I took over for the former medium, Amy Allen, who had been on the show for 15 seasons, and she decided she needed to take a break. So she asked me if I wanted to help her out and replace her for season 15 of Dead Files, and I said yes. So here I am.
I am curious about that background, and we'll go into it more here in depth in a while. But one of our most signature questions that we like to ask is, are you happy? So Cindy, are you happy?
Am I happy? What does happiness mean? That's actually a better question. What does it mean to be happy, right? Because I think in our culture, a lot of people attach happiness to material gain, to fame, in the industry that I'm in, right? It's like, how far can you go? Does that make you happy? And what I've honestly found is, even with TV and success, that's not where my happiness comes from. And I've learned to find happiness in really, and not to sound, corny by saying this, but like in the little things, in the simple things, like being with my husband, being with my dog, who's like, my soulmate, like enjoying, just rest and creating art and things like that. It's interesting to have achieved a lot of the goals that I set out to achieve, and to be here and be like, did this actually turn out the way I thought it was going to? Does it make me happy? And it's like, in some ways, absolutely. But I'm really learning that happiness is not about all the things that I thought it was about. It's more about community and friends and love and the small things, honestly.
I really like that you're thinking of it more as a holistic perspective as opposed to just certain things and certain people. Have you always thought about it that way? Have you always kind of considered it from, far away versus up front and just focusing on particular things?
No, honestly, I grew up, I didn't come from money. I grew up in a really small town in New Hampshire. Population was like 2,000. So I always had these big dreams of getting out of the small town and going to LA and going to New York and doing all these things. And I've done those things. And honestly, it's funny because now I'm like, I just want to go back to the woods. I just want to go back to the small town in some ways, right? But no, I really, really believed from a young age that happiness would come from, having a nice car, having a big house, or having all these things that I saw on TV. And I now know that that's not the case. Money doesn't make people happy. It doesn't. It's an illusion, and I don't have a lot of money. I have enough to survive. I'm doing well, but I'm not rich. But I just have really learned in the course of working so hard for so many years and burning the candle at both ends that I've missed some really important moments with family, with friends, because I was so hyper focused on quote unquote making it, and can miss a lot of moments in that space. And I've traveled to a lot of different countries and spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. And, the one thing that I've really started to understand is the difference between collectivist cultures and individualistic cultures. And in Southeast Asia, it's collectivist, where the community is really important, and how people find happiness in the community. Because, I feel like in the West, it can get a little bit lonely. We're all really focused on, how can I achieve my goals? How can I become self-actualized? How can I do this and that? And it can be isolating. And so to really lean into the idea that you don't have to carry it all by yourself, that being of service to other people and community, it makes me happy. That makes me happy. being in service, and just showing up for people, without an expectation so much, and but it's taken me, I mean, I'm 43 now, I'm not young, I'm not old, but I'm just at this point in life where I'm rethinking everything. Like I'm really starting to be like, what really makes me happy, and what does that look like, and how does that look 20 years from now? So. And I'll say then one more thing. I just went 20 years into the future, but I'll say the happiest I've ever been is when I'm truly present, like truly present. Not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, not attaching a story to everything. Because the stories are what really they get us. Like the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that other people tell us. And what does it look like to just sit in a space of pure presence with no stories attached, and to really connect to the earth, to nature, to all of it. And it's that makes me happy, really happy.
I agree. That's a wonderful way to look at things. And I'm curious about your journey. And by the way, 43, you're not old, definitely.
No, yeah, I know, but it's so weird being in your 40s. I'm like, it's like that weird. I'm like, oh wow, midlife. Like this is interesting. Okay, so but go ahead. Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm like approaching the 40, so I have hope now. Thank you.
Yeah.
But what an exciting time for you this period is, because I feel like it's all a journey. And all of these moments of happiness is more so in the journey. And
yes,
you've
absolutely.
Perfectly. Yeah. So while you were growing up and while you were, searching and achieving these objectives of success and what you thought success was for you, but then realizing that those moments were most special and being present, like could not possibly even, state that as perfectly as you did, but that is so true. And it's an exciting time for you. So I'm really curious, like at what point in your life path did you realize that, hey, the moments with the people, your family, that those were so important and that they were missing? Like, when did you realize that those moments were being passed?
Yeah, I mean, and it's really, and this is like personal story. My brother passed away last year. My brother was 48 years old. He had type 2 diabetes that was unmanaged. So anybody out there that has diabetes, it's serious. Don't neglect your diabetes. It's literally killed my brother, and so my brother was sick for years, and, wound up going on dialysis. And this was like when he went on dialysis, I was in the middle of filming. I was doing a ton of live events. I was teaching. And it's like every time I would try to get out there, something would come up. Then I could only go out and visit him for a few days. And then I would have to go back to filming or go back to work. And I wasn't even really thinking about all of it. And I didn't know he was going to die when he did. What wound up happening is he got an infection from the dialysis port, which turned septic. And then, the story goes from there. Like he died rather quickly after that happened. And luckily I was able to be there for him when he died. I was in the hospital with him. But after he died, I looked back and I said, what am I doing? Like I could have been around a lot more, but I was so busy working, thinking I had to do all of these things. Right. And I really did miss some moments with my brother that I should have been there more for. And so there's some regret there. And I know a lot of people can probably relate to that. Right. It's like, and unfortunately, our culture really creates, I call it scarcity mindset, where we're being, all of these images and advertisements and things are being thrown at us that create fear mindset, where if I don't have enough of this, then I might lose this, or this might happen, and it keeps us in the state of fear. And I realized that that's what was happening, and it's, I try not to dwell on the past, but I learned from the past. And through my brother's death, I learned like, wow, like this behavior of being a workaholic and having to think I have to achieve all of these big goals and prove myself to people. Who am I proving myself to when I'm not even showing up for my family when they really need me the most? I mean, I showed up at the end, but I missed a lot of moments. And it was a teacher for me. My brother's death, and I love my brother so much. We were very close, but his death taught me so much about life, about how I'm living my life, about grief, deep grief. And I don't know, I hope I can walk forward, with this new information and make some changes.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm so sorry for your loss. It made me tear up because I lost a brother not that long ago. And I have some of those similar feelings where you wish that you could have been with them, spent more time with them. But then for myself, not to make it about me.
No, please. Like, I mean, look, let's talk about it.
Oh, yeah. He died during COVID time because of COVID. And so he was getting better and my mom said, don't come. Because I wanted to go. And then he ended up passing during that period. And so I missed that. I missed it when he asked. I'm so sorry. And so for some time I was thinking about all these moments I didn't have. And what got me through that was thinking about all of the moments that I did have and how we had a very, very huge connection and he's still with me. So I carry everyone that's gone with me all the time. And they are everything.
Yeah, and they are. And, and I'll say, I don't know about you, but your experience with losing your brother, but I'll tell you, losing a sibling is one of the hardest things ever. I mean, we lost our mother in 2013. That was really challenging, but losing my brother was it has been hands down the most challenging experience of my life. And granted, people will say to me, well, you're a medium, you can sense spirits. Like how come it's so difficult for you? And I'm not exempt from having a human experience just because I could feel energies from beyond. And it has been really, really challenging, and I think with our siblings, we think, well, they're supposed to be with us throughout life. They're supposed to be with us when our parents die. Like we're supposed to walk through life with our siblings. We share that experience. And so it's really, it's the deepest grief I've ever experienced in my life. It's been really challenging.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, we don't really think of life without them. They're always there. So
right.
Not have them to not be able to call your brother, right? And say, hey, this happened, or hey, let's talk about this. It's now shifted. And so my sister, she took it the worst and she's still processing it. She lost her father and our brother in like the same period. So she's
brutal.
Oh yeah. And then she has her kids to take care of. So she's got a lot on her plate, but all I can do as a sibling is try to remind her, hey, he's still here. I went to a football game because he loves the Dallas Cowboys. And so I went to this football game and I talked to him the whole time. And anytime something funny happened or, just really comical, I had this conversation with him and I try to convey that to her that if we still kind of engage with them and, think fondly of them, then they've never left and we can still have that time with them. So,
yeah, beautiful.
If you could share a message with the world, anything at all, what would you tell them?
Oh God, where do I begin? I don't know. First, let me just start by saying this. And it makes me laugh because I thought I knew so much about so many things. And the more I learn, literally the less I know. So when you ask me that question, I'm like, what do I honestly have to offer? Like what could, I mean, and that's, being a little bit self-deprecating, but it really, I mean that in the best of ways, because, especially in the line of work that I do, people want to know what happens when we die. And I have an idea based on what I've learned from the spirits that I've communicated with. But I will say that I don't think anybody truly knows what happens when we die. We have ideas, but we can't possibly comprehend the shift in energy, because from my understanding, time is not linear. Space, there's no concept of time and space are very different, right? And if we look at that, what does that mean to cross over, right? And so I guess if I wanted to share something with the world on the topic of death and dying and psychic mediumship, I would say, forgiveness, learning to forgive ourselves, learning to forgive others, and having compassion is probably one of the most important things that we can look at in a lifetime. And it sounds simple on the surface, but I think most of us struggle with that. And I think a lot of us struggle more with having compassion for ourselves and forgiving ourselves, right? Because what I found in especially doing paranormal investigation. So let me preface this by saying most of the time I'm not communicating with spirits who have unfinished business. Most of the time I'm communicating with people's loved ones who have a really lovely message. And on Dead Files, if you watch the show Dead Files, which is on Max, is streaming on Max, you'll see that I'm going to these locations where I'm helping families who are having unwanted paranormal activity. And these cases, it's just, a skewed population because a lot of times it's, what's perceived to be negative activity. So I just want to tell people that's not generally how it is. But when I'm going in and working with these spirits at these locations, most of the time it's an aspect of the soul that has unhealed trauma, that has fear, that doesn't have compassion for, itself. And those pieces can fragment off and kind of stay stuck at locations. So if we can work through those emotions when we were here, there's less of a chance that that's going to happen when we go to the other side, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that the entirety of a soul is like in a purgatory or stuck in a haunted house. I really believe, I'm starting to believe that when we have a trauma, a piece can fragment off and other pieces can be in other places. Because if you read about people that have had near-death experiences, people will tell you that they can be in many different places at the same time. So if the soul's able to be in many different places simultaneously, right, it doesn't make sense that the entirety of a soul would be stuck in a haunted house. Mm-hmm. So what aspect of the soul am I communicating with? And I found most of the time it's a fragmented, traumatized piece that needs love, that needs to be reintegrated, that wants to heal, that wants the story to be heard.
That's fascinating.
But if we can work through some of that stuff when we're here, right, then it's like, great,
That'll definitely help you in that transition period. That's for sure.
And there's something today that a lot of people, and I've done sessions where it's called parts retrieval. I've had facilitators do these sessions with me. I know other people who have had it done, where a facilitator or a guide will take you into like a guided meditation. I can't really call it a past life regression because it's not that, but they will connect you with these fragmented pieces or traumatized pieces of yourself that you can look at and reintegrate. So like you might have, I don't know, some sort of a behavior that you're like, I don't know where this behavior comes from. I don't know why I feel this way. And they'll take you back to find when you had the original trauma. They'll show you the piece and then you reintegrate it and people have deep healing. So it's kind of in alignment with what I was talking about the soul and the fragments and the reintegration.
Yeah. I kind of feel like our brains block out some trauma, like there's places that we can't really remember, but it's more so like almost like a survival tactic, or your brain is trying to help you out. So you don't remember those things that you just can't handle.
Of course. And that's important, right? And I'll say this, it's not always necessary to go digging up these deep traumas and like, some people might disagree with me, but I would say this, like there's also a space where we can have feelings, we can have triggers, and sometimes it's more about just recognizing the trigger and like releasing the energy instead of trying to trauma hunt and figure out where it came from. So there's a lot of different ways that people can work with the energy, work with trauma, work with energy stuck in the body to release it, because we do hold our emotions in our bodies and those emotions can manifest into issues, so it's just from a more holistic approach of intuition and mediumship and psychic work. Sure. I think, we can communicate with souls and spirits and we can see things, but I think now in my work, I'm very much interested in how everything connects back to our bodies and how we can use these experiences to sort through our own stuff.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of us, people in your field excluded, but a lot of us on the outside don't really know much about what it is that you do, about auras and energies. We don't know it, as you do, because you work in that, you immerse yourself in that. That is, your work, right?
Yeah.
What are some preconceived notions that people have of mediumship and of like
Yeah.
energy reading? I really want to share these out. I want people to hear you talk about them, because I think,
Yeah.
any education would be great for them. But
Yeah. No,
things?
look, sure. Look, like, so first and foremost, I truly believe that everybody has psychic ability. The word psychic turns people off sometimes, because when some people hear the word psychic, they think of somebody reading your palm and telling you a lie and whatever. Okay. So let's use the word intuition. More people are comfortable with, oh, my intuition, showed me this. Okay. That seems to be a little bit more acceptable. If we even break it down more, most people have said at one point or another in their lives, oh man, I should have trusted my gut. Okay. Most people have said that. I should have trusted my gut. So your gut instinct is also your intuition, is also psychic ability. We're just using different language. If we my goal a lot, I think one of my goals is to remove this kind of, mystery around psychic mediumship, to make it more, I want to make it more relatable to people, because I really believe we all come in with the ability to sense these energies. And when we, watch Hollywood movies, we're shown this image that the medium has to see a full body apparition, and but it's way more subtle than that. And people are having experiences all of the time, and they don't understand that it's psychic or mediumistic, because they think that in order for it to be that, it has to be right in their face, like a full, body apparition. And the ways that we as, mediums and psychics receive information, I say it's like playing a game of Pictionary, charades, and telephone all at the same time. So there's clairvoyance, which is really breaks down to meaning clear seeing, but it's more like if you were to think of an image of your loved ones in your minds. It's more like if you have premonitions of seeing a scene playing out like a movie in your mind, and then it comes true. That's clairvoyance. Sensitives can feel, which is clairsentient. So you might be an empath. You might feel everybody else's emotions, including your own. You might feel the presence of the spirit world without seeing, but that's still spirit communication, right? Some people hear, which is called clairaudience, but generally it's not external auditory, like you're hearing me speak to you now. It's like if you were to sing the words to your favorite song in your head, it sounds like you're talking to yourself, but it's actually coming from elsewhere, right? So one spirit might be standing next to you, and you could you're like, I feel like there's a spirit next to me. I can feel it. You don't see it, but you can feel it. You might in your mind hear something like, I don't know, Joe. Like, let's just say you're hearing Joe, but it's like sounding like you're talking to yourself. And then you might see some image or scene play out, right? So if you don't understand the subtleties of spirit communication, you won't even know really that it's happening. You might be like, that was weird, something just happened, but you won't understand it. A lot of people have visitation dreams of their loved ones after they die. And I describe a visitation dream as it's the kind of dream that you'll never forget. You'll always remember what the person was wearing, how you felt. It's profound. It's different. It's not a normal dream. And in my experience, the spirit world will communicate that way with people more often, because when people are sleeping, they can't talk themselves out of the experience. It just happens. And then they wake up and somebody's like, I swear my mom was with me last night. I know she was there. I saw her. And that's spirit communication. That's a visitation dream. It's very common. People will smell cigarette smoke in a room, perfume in a room, something when nobody is there. So there are all these different ways that the spirit world is trying to get our attention. And if we're unaware of how they communicate, we will miss it. As far as the aura goes, and I do aura drawings and aura readings, an aura is an energy field that we have around us. Everybody has an aura. Plants have auras, animals have auras, humans have auras. And we hold a lot of information within the auric field. So when I'm drawing an aura, depending on which colors I see, they'll tell me this, can tell me the story of a person's life. I can see the past, the present, the future, health conditions. We hold it all within the aura. And what's interesting also about the aura, and I think a lot of people don't know this, is that, let me ask you this. Have you ever had the experience where you're standing in line somewhere and you feel like somebody is right behind you and you're just like, oh, why is this person so close to me? And you turn around and they're actually not that close to you. Mm-hmm. Like they might be a little bit further back, but you can feel it. You can feel the energy and you're like, oh, get away from me. It's because your aura is expanded out, touching their aura. It's too far expanded out and your energies are blending. Huh. So my aura can touch your aura. We can be across the room, but still have that experience because it's a invisible energy field, right? That can expand out, that can come back in. And people that are really empathic, that really feel everybody else's emotions, including their own, a lot of the times they're unaware that their aura is expanded out really far, touching everything all the time. And I encourage people, if that's happening to them, I encourage them to do visualizations where they visualize like pulling the aura in tightly around the body so it's not expanded out so much. But everything's energy, this stuff that I'm talking about, for some people, they think, oh, this is crazy or mediumship is ridiculous. And it's like, it's actually not. It's actually more common, and people are having experiences so often. I think that what turns people off to it sometimes is the idea that only a select few people have this gift, and that's BS,
I think what you said is so spot on about how it is advertised and mass communicated that it has to be such and such way. I would have never thought of any of that. But thank you so much for sharing that. I think that a lot of people listening or watching will agree, and they'll think like, oh, you know what? I've had something similar. Oh, this is actually quite relevant to me. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I did want to ask for you specifically, where in your life path did you realize that this is where you needed to devote all of yourself to?
Oh, let's see. I mean, it took a while. I mean, let me just share a little bit of history about, how I came to be, because the first experience I remember having was when I was 10. So when I was 10, there's a girl in my elementary school who died in a car accident. I knew her. We used to walk home from school together sometimes. She was a few years older than me. Unfortunately, she was hit by a drunk driver. She passed away. And after she died, I was sleeping at my Nana's house, and I woke up in the middle of the night to see her standing directly by my bed. So that was full body apparition. Now, side note, children are very open. Children will see spirits a lot. They'll see full body apparitions. A lot of kids will say, my imaginary friend. You're like, is it your imaginary friend, or are you communicating with spirit? Like, just things to be mindful of for all those parents that have psychic kids or kids that are tapped into the spirit world. It's very, very common. Okay. So, but as we get older, the tendency is for the experience to become more subtle. So it's less in your face. Why that is, I don't know. If I could speculate, it would be because we're so focused on all the things we have to do. We're focused on the past. Our minds are very much in future or past, right? We're not present as much as kids are. Kids are just present. They're open. They're like in imagination, so for them, I think it's, I don't know. They have access to this dimension in a different way, to the spirit world. Right. But, anyway, so it wasn't until really like, my early 20s that I started to really just, figure it out, because what happened in high school was even before high school, super sensitive. I could sense spirits. I could read people. I knew when things were going to happen before they did. But I didn't have the language for that. I grew up in a religious family. I have a lot of Catholics in the family. We didn't talk about I see dead people. That was never a topic of conversation. We didn't talk about ghosts, And at age 19, I met my first mentor, who was the first woman. Her name was Bonnie, the first woman to look at me and say, "You're a psychic medium." And I was like, I didn't even believe her. I was like, "What are you talking about, lady? Like, what are you talking about?" You know? And it took me a couple of years. We became really good friends. And she slowly but surely started to explain psychic stuff to me and metaphysics. And then I finally was like, you know what? She's right. And then I went back and I was like, that experience I had at age 10 was real, because I never forgot it. For all those years, it was like burned into my memory. I knew something had happened, but then I thought, well, maybe I was just imagining it. And then once I had somebody validate me and say, no, this is who you are, everything started to make sense. And then from there, I made the decision, okay, I need to figure this out. I started studying mediumship. I started reading a lot of books about psychic ability, but I didn't make it a career until I think like mid to late 20s, and then everything changed. But it was a process for me. It wasn't like as a young girl I was like, this is what I'm doing with my life. In fact, I couldn't have imagined this life for myself,
Right. It wasn't as if it was like one of the options on like the personality test you take as a kid, or like,
right.
Was it like a job career place?
Right. Exactly. It should be. That'd be cool.
Right. It would be. I really think that you've opened people's eyes today in understanding that they do have these abilities and that they're not quite paying attention. Well, partially because they don't know what to pay attention to. But
right.
You made some really excellent points. And there was something that I glazed over that I was like, oh, I need to ask her that. And I totally glazed over it. So keeps on leaving and then coming back, but eventually I'll get it. Okay. It left again. But
no, let me add something. Maybe it'll come back. Let me just add one thing, because I want to add to, I'm sure there's listeners of all different walks of faith and belief systems. And I am very much of the mindset that my job is certainly not to convert atheists into believers or make people believe what I do. Like that is not my mission in life. But I would encourage people to really think about, like, okay, when even if, let's say, you're praying to the angels, you feel the presence of the angels helping you in your life, or so on and so forth, right? So the definition of a medium is an intermediary between one dimension, the next, one space, and the next. And there seems to be this really like a stigma attached to people saying, well, I can feel the presence of the people's loved ones who have passed away. It's like, oh, that's evil. But if you're feeling the presence of angels and you're communicating with angels, you're technically doing mediumship. Mm-hmm. And it's just something to think about. Like, and one is not better than the other. But I think, unfortunately, like such a disservice has been done to this work in the media with, like, again, like movies representing it incorrectly or portraying what we do in this way that it's for most of us is not like that. And it's also not normalizing it for people who are having these experiences all the time, but not quite sure, they aren't quite sure what's happening. And I want to normalize it more. I want to make it more accessible to people.
I love that. I think that you were spot on when you said earlier about adults versus children. So children, they're a completely blank canvas and they can receive anything. They have no preconceived notions of things, or no, almost like,
they're not jaded. They're not jaded by life.
Right. They're not jaded. They don't have, God, there's a word, but okay. I'm just at a loss for words.
Expectation.
Wonderful. Yeah,
thank you.
They have no expectations, no biases. That's what I was looking for. No.
Yeah,
bias,
it's true.
right?
It's true.
And adults have all kinds of clutter and all kinds of experiences and things that will change their judgment and their viewpoint. And being completely open. There's nothing wrong with being open to everything. Being open to experiences, and then even to the fact that happiness is subjective to everyone, and there is no one specific happiness. So if we were more open, the kind of things that we would experience and achieve, probably, right?
Well, and that's the way, and that's another thing, just to add quickly, is what I've learned is being open and curious creates so much space to have new experiences from a place of presence, from a place without all of these stories attached. And I believe for me that makes me happy, because the second that I think that I know everything, I say, please tell me to quit my job, because there's so much that I don't know. None of us have all of the answers, but we can all learn from one another, and we can learn from, each other's experiences, and also, our deepest struggles can be our greatest teachers, and learning from other people's struggles. And it's just such a beautiful, I think, way to be. And I've had to really, like, focus on that more, because I think, especially in the work that I do, you receive pushback a lot. And from that place where people are name calling and pushing back, in the past, I would really it would hurt my feelings, or I'd go in, or I would just say, well, I know this is real, and I know. And it's creates the othering, right? It's just social psychology. Oh, I want to be with my people that believe me, and everybody else can go out here. Right. And it's that's also not the way to be, because, the more open and curious that I am, even about why people might have opposing views. Well, why do you not believe? Well, that's actually a better question. Is more than anything. It's well, why do you not believe? What's the reason that you don't believe? Is it religion? Is it because somebody told you it wasn't real? Is it because you're afraid? Is it because you're afraid if you do have experiences that you'll lose your mind? That's a huge fear. Are you afraid that people will call you crazy? I mean, there are all these reasons that people shut down. And a lot of the time it's because of fear. It's fear of how other people will view them, or whatever else. And so to me, that's the better question. Why are you such a skeptic, and why don't you believe? Why?
I think it could also be fear of being overwhelmed, if they
all of it.
were to acknowledge all of these, experiences or things that they felt, that they kind of said, well, no, not today, maybe tomorrow. Maybe next week,
exactly. Because when you open it up, what does that look like? Right. And it's very safe to, and I'm speaking for myself too. So when anything I say, I'm also talking about myself. It's very safe to stay in the box that we feel because when we have these big openings or awakenings or something shifts like that, it's in some ways can be a threat to our identities, how we view ourselves, the way that we walk through life. And when we have the shift of perspective that can feel very radical, it can feel, it's like an identity crisis. Well, who am I if I suddenly believe that this is real? And what does that look like? So it's deep. There's a lot of stuff in there.
For people that are interested in learning more, what books or authors or what would you recommend for them to start with?
Oh man. So I will say, I'll give this book. It was a game changer for me, because it's called Dying to Be Me. It was written by this woman, Anita Moorjani. It's an easy read. It's not, challenging to read. I read it in 2 days. And I'm not an avid reader. So for me to say, my ADD is makes it very impossible for me to read a damn book. I made it through this book in 2 days. But what happened was, this woman, Anita Moorjani, she had a near-death experience. Her story is incredible. So she died, she came back, and she wrote this book about what happened, when she died. And she was able to be in, I think, 5 different places all at the same time that were nowhere near one another. So it's she was on an airplane with, I think, her brother. She was with her mom, who was walking up the steps of a Hindu temple. Forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, but it's something like that. She was able to be outside the hospital room. She could hear what the doctors and nurses were saying. And this was all these things were happening simultaneously. And she came back and she accurately described it. And for me, it was a game changer in the sense of I used to think, well, when we die, we go somewhere, we go to the other side, heaven, whatever you want your name is for it. Some people say purgatory, some people say transition. And we have a full body and it's like this, and we're in one place. And that was no, actually, that's not it. Where are we? What's actually happening? And it created an opening for me to explore the concept of bilocation, of like nonlinear time, like the idea that like the space as we know it in this realm does not exist on the other side. And what does that mean for the soul and the ability of the soul to travel? And I'll tell you, I believe the soul can travel like that in this dimension too, if we know how to access it and work with it. But that's a whole other topic. It's
fascinating though. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and experiences with us today. I do want to talk about some of your other work with the show. What's coming up? What have you done? What are you proud of? What are your outlook aspirations for your work with the show?
Well, Dead Files, so the season is streaming on Max. I think some people see it on Discovery Plus. So the streaming services are all, there's a bunch of them now. I don't know where anything is. I'm like, what's going on? So Max, Discovery Plus, we'll see what happens with Dead Files. It was an honor to be able to step in for Amy. So I'm grateful to her. She was on the show, like I said, for 15 seasons. Like, she's awesome. So there's that, but I also have been developing my own project, which is something that I really, really want to bring to the world, which is exploring, different cultures and religions and how they view the afterlife and what they think happens, what happens when we die, right? And because I really believe that how we experience the other side is dependent upon our belief system. So if you grow up in a Christian home, you are going to experience the afterlife from the Christian lens. If you grow up in an Islamic home, you are going to experience these energies from that lens. And so you can have two people from different religions and cultures experiencing the same energies, but calling it something different. But getting the same information, that's interesting to me, because in that space where we can really sit and have discussions about that, it actually shows that we have a lot more in common than we think. People from different religions, cultures, there are more similarities than differences. But unfortunately, we focused on the differences for too long. A lot of people have. So trying to bring those pieces together. There's a Ram Dass quote. Ram Dass is really amazing, but he said, "We're all just here walking each other home," and I think that's really beautiful, right? We're all just here walking each other home, and if we can find ways to do that, despite our differences, if we can find more similarities, I think the world would really be a much better place. It would be a healthier place. Yeah, I mean, that project is one that it's been my passion. Like I said at the beginning of our interview, I've spent a lot of time in different countries. I've spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, and I'm really deeply fascinated by the different belief systems and experiences people have had with the afterlife.
I can't wait to see that project.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed, right?
Oh man, I can't think of anyone that wouldn't want to make that. So people watching, if you know people, send them her way.
Yeah, right.
It sounds amazing, because it's so true. There is a lot of root basis in your faith. And if you didn't practice your faith and maybe you explored different faiths, so then you have various lenses that you're kind of combining. I grew up in a partial Catholic household, but then not Catholic household. So there's a lot of different things.
That's like me too. Yeah.
Spirits in the house. We grew up in houses that notoriously had spirits there, and it was crazy. Every single house we had was like that, and we don't know why. We didn't seek it out, but it's just what it was.
Do you want me to tell you why I think that is? Do you want me to tell you why I think that is?
Sure.
Because if it's in every single house that you're in, no matter where you go, it's because there's a medium in the house. Not because every house is haunted. It's because there's a medium in the house that can connect with the spirits. You see what I mean?
Yeah. My housemate, he would tell me a lot of the time that I have, certain gifts, and I wouldn't really pay attention to it, just because, like we were talking about earlier, about not being ready for that, not knowing, because there's so much going on, just knowing that that's not ready to be explored. And so that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. He's of a Buddhist nature, so he has a different word for it and a different word for a lot of those things. And it's funny the things that he tells me, and I'm like, yes, you're right, but I'm not ready to explore that yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting when I was hearing you speak about your brother's death and how you're like, I feel him, he's everywhere. Like maybe he's one of the ones that will help you kind of lean into that experience and tap into your natural ability, And again, I really think we all have it. It's just I say everyone can play the piano. Not everybody is going to be a concert pianist, but we all have it to a degree. I 100% believe that.
I agree. I agree. Is there anything else that you want to share that we maybe didn't go over today?
I don't know. I feel like this is like a pretty deep. We went over a lot of stuff. I'm not sure.
We really did. I love having more of a conversation with people as opposed to a set agenda. Of course, we always begin with happiness, and that is so multifaceted. So it's always a good conversation. But then being able to explore your life path and share that with other people, I think that's immense. And it'll help everyone in whatever way that they need it at that particular moment. So 2024, man.
Yeah, here we go. Buckle up, everyone. Get your popcorn. It's going to be a show.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Cindy Kaza, for being with us on Are You Happy podcast. You guys can stream it. You can find her show on all the streaming platforms, and be sure to check out all of the recommendations that she gave out today. Thanks again, Cindy, and see you guys next week on Are You Happy podcast.
Thanks for having me.
The Are You Happy podcast is brought to you by Are You Happy? Check out our 4 million plus follower strong community on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Linktree in profile or visit www.happypeople.me. Want to join our team of interviewers? Support the show or become a sponsor? All this and more can be done on our site, happypeople.me. If you feel that pull to answer the question, are you happy? And then share it with the world, now is your chance. Send us a voice message on Instagram to areyouhappy_podcast and let us know if you're happy or not happy. Remember, everyone has a story worth sharing. This is Vanessa the Vivacious, host and executive producer for Are You Happy podcast, wishing you the best day of your lives. Be well, be kind, and be happy. See you guys next time on another wonderful episode of Are You Happy? The Happy Hour.